I-0-508, December 2019. So this will be the first lecture that is based on the actual content. So we're going to go over our kind of introduction to the physiology of the stress response. And again, just to remind you what you should do, this is the menu items in Blackboard, and when you click on it, you'll see I'll click on this right here, it highlights it, and then you can go like this and download the syllabus, okay? And I encourage you to do that and read through it. I've already kind of mentioned this. I'm going to get a little sign here, and then editing, and then this is just my computer doing odd things. Okay, so again, read through the syllabus. I already went over the syllabus in the introductory video, so I'm going to get out of there. Okay, so your approach every lecture is to come in here and begin with the readings. Okay, so the syllabus is the first thing right here. We click, okay, and it's taking me to the readings, and you're going to go to that week's reading. So this, as I mentioned, this is June 17th, the first lecture. This is June 17th as well. So you have all week to go through these. You can do one and then do the next. So I'm going to click right here, okay, and you need to take some time. You see this particular video, probably the most important one. It's an amazing documentary called Stress, the Portrait of a Killer. And it really, in very clean Hollywood fashion, personifies the psychological aspect of stress, okay? And this is reiterated here in a very short 3-minute video by Dr. Sapolsky. This whole section is devoted to Dr. Sapolsky because he is the world leader in this area. He is renowned, and not only that, he's an amazing lecturer, an amazing communicator. So I think it's just best that you learn from the best. And so I want you to take the time and really just sit down and watch these and absorb it. Don't get too caught up in content, because you're going to learn from all these by just kicking back and enjoying the ride. All right, this one I threw in a little bit extra. It's just really, really interesting to talk about the different human behaviors, and again, his perspective is the biological perspective, and when I talk about biology, we learned so much by looking at our evolutionary ancestors, and our best way of doing that in the current world is to just look at different species that we are most common with. Okay, so obviously it's very difficult to compare my psychological behavior with the psychological behaviors that maybe a fruit fly or a lizard do show in their world. Although there are some amazing links that are even the most simplest organisms that we have. But we can work our way back and look at primates, and we can look at mammals, and then go from there and get the basics of the biology of the stress response. Okay, and that's and this right here is the biology of human behavior that includes the stress response. So I just found it really, really interesting. The content, the quizzes, the discussion really do not stem from this video. So I just relax and enjoy the ride when you have the time on that one. Okay? All right, so then again, these two are focusing in on the physiology of stress. Why we have the stress response in place. He refers to this concept of being optimal. All right, so and he refers back to homeostasis. And what is that? What that just basically means is, no matter the challenge, I'm going to be putting forth the most optimal physiology so that I can rise to meet that challenge and do really well. Okay, and survive and live a long and happy life. Okay, that means the person with the best stress response is going to survive to the point that they can reproduce, because then we pass on those traits. Okay, and the person maybe with the best stress response is also going to survive into old age. Okay, and they go over the sociality of it in these two videos. Okay, socially, if you're very at the very low end of the societal pecking order, okay, and you get harassed a lot, and life is difficult. You don't have access to good food. You're constantly vigilant, okay, meaning, oh my God, somebody's going to kick my behind. I'm always watching, This is not at the top of the sociological pecking order, and your stress response is hyperactivated, and there are dire physiological consequences. There is a condition called stress-related diabetes. We're going to learn about that. The stress hormone causes the brain parts that are responsible for learning and memory, parts of the hippocampus, and the other brain area that is responsible for our decision making, our frontal cortex. Both of them atrophy under the weight of high levels of stress hormones. Okay, and this is important because those two brain areas are responsible for shutting off the stress response. Okay, so that when you get to a high stress, chronic high stress situation, when you are stressed, all the hormones that can be bad for you stay elevated for a much longer period of time. Okay, those two brain areas too, the frontal cortex. Okay, you'll see it referred to in the reading as prefrontal cortex. This is again your decision maker, how to override, how to weigh things in life and say, okay, I need to respond to this, not respond to that. It is a real important decision maker that decides, okay, you know what, I'm not going to flip out right now. I'm not going to have road rage. I'm not going to have this high stress response at this moment in time because it really doesn't benefit me. It's just psychological. When the prefrontal cortex and hippocampus begin to die off, then you're much more likely to not inhibit the stress response and activate the area that triggers the whole cascade events in your body that put you online with high blood pressure and racing heart and everything else, and suppress your immune system because you don't need that when you're being chased by a lion. So that area, okay, that is responsible for creating this huge cascade called the amygdala. And I always think of A, okay, the letter A, okay, is present in the word fear. The letter A is the very first letter that you see in the word anger, okay, anxiety, okay, rage, okay, so fear, rage. Think of that word, that letter A in all those. It is driven by the amygdala, and when it's chronically activated, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So its response, and then what happens is all the hormones that get released cause the two brain areas that are responsible for corralling it in, the hippocampus and the prefrontal cortex, they begin to shrink. So the amygdala starts to free run, and you flip out over everything. Okay, long term, the hormones that get elevated cause problems. Okay, cause diabetes, immune dysfunction, immune suppression. Okay, they cause heart disease, and they contribute to dementia as well, and ultimately can be the worst kind of dementia, which is Alzheimer's disease. Okay, you understand, you've all experienced that high stress thing. They call it cortisol related dementia. People that have PTSD have cognitive dysfunction. Okay, alrighty. So that's the background on that. Okay, so then what we want you to do is go in here, and we want you to apply this knowledge now to some reading. Okay, so this is the PDF file. Okay, remember I also produce the URL. You can see the little spinning sphere there, and okay, so I am in. So I'm just going to make this a larger article. Okay, and we can just kind of go through this, all right? And I'm going to say. How's that? Sorry, I have a glitch in my computer right now. So, okay, so this goes over the whys of the stress response. And this guy's Robert Sapolsky, again, the expert in this area, is very articulate, and he's got lots of flair and flash into his use of the English language. And I think you should read this article the way you would read a novel and just absorb it in and not get caught up in the details. Okay, so the first thing he talks about is the importance of the brain. Okay, and that it is an endocrine gland, meaning that it controls a lot of hormones in your bloodstream. Okay, and he looks at the secreting and inhibiting of hormones into a really important system. This is called the hypothalamic. This is part of the brain. Pituitary, okay, which is a gland that dials in right here. And this is the blood system, portal system, okay? And how those two interact, okay? And then he taps into it down here yes, we tap into this with an acute physical crisis, okay? So an acute physical crisis, for example, would be to go from your nice, cozy, warm house and step outside where it's 15 degrees below zero. That is a major physiological stress, and you start dumping out adrenaline, okay, to increase the blood flow to the surface of your skin so that you don't get frostbite, okay? Another acute physical crisis would be you cut yourself and you're losing blood, okay? You need to create the blood flow, maintain the blood flow to your brain and your heart. So you're going to elevate your blood pressure, again, in response to this physical crisis. Release the adrenaline and release another hormone called cortisol, okay? The problem is that we also activate this system just by ruminating and worrying, okay, for a complete and total psychological state, okay? And again, anxiety, things like this, PTSD, these are all psychological states that tap into this, okay? Me worrying about whether or not my son is going to get a job and be successful. He's 25, he has a whole life ahead of him. He's not 25 yet, he's 24. It should be okay, okay? And yet I worry about it and I create stress in my life by doing that, okay? So you need to have a cognitive restructuring that we're going to learn about later on. It's called cognitive behavioral therapy to keep from ruminating on these thoughts, because it has serious, significant, harmful effects on the physiology of your body, okay, and your brain. Okay, so it goes in here and then it talks about these brain areas. Here's the hippocampus, important for learning and memory, okay, that is affected by the stress response. It activates they call them glucocorticoid receptors, okay, and it talks a little bit about anti-inflammatory. I'm going to have steroid injections in my lower back to reduce acutely the inflammation, but chronically, high levels of steroids allow infections and inflammation to go rampant, and that's what he talks about right here. Okay, all righty. He now then he moves from the biological physical stress to the psychological stress, and then he then jumps to, okay, so now we've had this psychological stress or this physical stress, and how it has a lasting effect on our bodies, okay? And this is through looking at a unique form of modulation of our DNA called epigenetics. So what does that mean? Okay, so every one of us has our DNA that we inherit from our mom and dad, okay? All right, that is our cookbook. We have that cookbook in every single cell of your body. Now, what makes me make a brain cell versus a skin cell developmentally is we have these epigenetic proteins that are just like a Post-it. You go to that chapter 5, recipe 5, and you make that protein, and you make it at a certain amount, and now lo and behold, you have a brain cell, and you have different Post-its and different recipes. These are the genes in your DNA for making a kidney cell, a skin cell. So this is all dialed in, okay? Alrighty, developmentally, okay? However, we also can have environmental factors that will go in there and say, let's change which proteins we're going to make. Tells the cookbook what recipes are going to be made, what new proteins are going to be made, okay? And if you're constantly bathing your cells in stress hormones, then that changes which recipes are going to be made in all your different cell types. In addition, all the systems interact. in a potentially bad way. And that's what he's talking about here with the epigenetics. Okay. He then, again, goes over the interactive components. Okay. So he's talking a little bit here about the amygdala. Okay. So we have the atrophy in the hippocampus. We have the atrophy in the frontal cortex. These are the guys that control the amygdala, but the amygdala gets bigger. All right. So that's what happens with anxiety. That's what happens with PTSD. Okay, so that you have then an overstimulation of the stress response that then can have all these other undesirable side effects. He talks a little bit about the variability in stress, all right, and how if you have understimulation, that's not good. You need to have just the right amount of stimulation to induce just the right amount of growth and function, and not only your brain but all throughout your body. Okay, he talks about the different type of receptors. Okay, cortisol, when it is released, binds to either one of these receptors. It's just that at low levels, it binds to this guy. The magic receptor is what we're going to call it. It's called the mineralocorticoid receptor, but the MR is magical. And in this phase right here, when you release low levels of steroids, it's great. Okay. This guy doesn't get activated by this low level of steroid you see right here, okay? This is the glucocorticoid receptor, and this is god-awful bad, all right? How's that sound, okay? So this is magical. This is god-awful bad receptor. When it gets overactivated, you get overstimulation. You get all kinds of dire consequences, okay? It takes a lot more of the steroid hormone to cause this, but this high level of the steroid hormone is what's seen in somebody that has lots of anxiety. Here, I'm not anxious, so I'm always in this good area. Somebody who's anxious is in this bad area, okay? And this bad area causes bad stimulation here that counteracts this right here, okay? Somebody that has PTSD, all right? The smallest thing, an image that doesn't affect this person at all, affects them dramatically here. It triggers something, a sound, an image, a feeling that reminds me of that horrible thing that happened in their lives, and boom, they're right here into this phase. Okay. Alrighty, so that's what that's all about. Okay, so I'm going to get out of here. Okay, I'm going back to the class here. What you would then do, and I'm going to get out of my preview, okay, so you can see what it's going to be like, because this is opening up on Tuesday. Okay, so I said continue on, so it's going to take a little while. It's going to take me to my preview, and we're going to go back into the readings. Okay, and what I would now do is go to this first lecture. Okay, all right, and I would again, you've watched all the videos, you read the article with me, and you read it on your own. Just kick back, enjoy the flow, don't worry about the details. Then you get in here and you take the quiz, okay, and you hit continue, right, and you answer all these right here. Okay, so again, we talked about this already. The hippocampus, okay, does it get bigger? Okay, does this shrink? Okay, does this shrink? Okay, so you have to ask yourself what goes on here. Okay, which one's true, or is it all the above? Okay, remember I just talked about that in the video. All right, so you figure that out, and then you jump from there, take a deep breath, and when you feel like it, you go in here, the discussion, okay? Alrighty, and each discussion, okay, so this is the first discussion right here, is linked to what you've done in terms of the lecture and the readings, okay? So, so we want to talk a little bit about the inverted U, okay? Somebody that has chronic high levels of stress, okay? Somebody has PTSD, somebody has anxiety, somebody is severely clinically depressed, okay? They have high levels of cortisol, okay? What does it do to the amygdala? Okay, remember, it grows so that now everything makes them stressful. How about the hippocampus? It feeds back to try and shut it off. That high level of stress screws with it, okay? And it gets smaller, and you start having cognitive problems as well, okay? Alrighty, so you go in there and you talk about that, okay? So I'm going to come over here. I already did this right here. This is my original post, okay? And, okay, we're going to come up over here, and I could then reply to it, okay? Maybe I need to edit it, okay? Because I didn't say enough. So I'm going to come over here, okay, and say, okay. All right, so I talked about some of the bad things that happen with stress, the inverted U, okay? So low stress, okay? All right, activate the magic, oops, sorry. I have to get rid of my cat. The magic receptor, the mineralocorticoid receptor, to improve hippocampus and frontal cortex function. Okay. All right. High stress hormones, cortisol. Okay. Released by anxious people and depressed people, okay, shrinks the hippocampus and frontal cortex. But it makes the amygdala bigger. What does that do to your stress if the amygdala is bigger and those areas are smaller, right? It means every time you get exposed to something that's even more stressful, things go off even more so, right? Think about that, okay? All right. All right, guys, so you got this, all right? You are not biologists. Just enjoy the ride. Don't worry about it, okay? All righty, so I'm going to hit submit because I've edited my thing now, so I've added this to it, okay? And that's how it works, guys. So that is the first lecture, and this is how it's gonna roll. I'm gonna help you out a lot in each of the lectures, okay? All righty, we'll see you next time.